is Rob Dauster. That gentleman you see over there staring at his phone right now is the one and only Jeffrey Goodman. Jeff, I have a question for you before we get started today.
Yes.
The last game that you were at last night, where was it? What arena did you go to?
You think I remember? It was the IUPUI one. Bankers. No, not Bankers. Indiana Coliseum. What's it called? Farmers.
Oh, yeah. Who played in that game?
I don't know. I have no idea who played in that game.
Was it Villanova? Was it Villanova and Winthrop?
It might have been Villanova Winthrop. Yes.
What was the final score of the Villanova Winthrop game?
Man, I was hoping for the backdoor cover so bad, so bad, and it just you were worried. You were sweating it out.
I was so worried. And look, I had a bunch of money on it, right? Yeah. But I cared so much more about being able to come on the stream and say, I was right and you were wrong. Like you could have taken the money that I had on that bet.
I knew it right away. You know when I knew it? The first time Chandler Vaudrin drove to the basket, I knew it. I knew it was over. Seriously. I knew the game was over because he had the same lift that you have.
Yes.
Right? I mean, seriously, it might as well have been you out there trying to get by dudes that score around the basket against Jeremiah Robinson Earl and Jermaine Samuels and all those other guys.
I tried to tell you.
Yeah.
Two trendy upset picks ended up not hitting. But I will say this. Oral Roberts and North Texas, we both talked about that.
Yeah.
We talked about how those matchups made sense to be upsets. And we talked about how we didn't love the other Oral Roberts or not Oral Roberts. We didn't love Winthrop or Colgate to be upsets. So let's spend a little bit of time on those games before we move on and talk about today's slate. So which one? I think Oral Roberts is one of my favorite upsets in a while. And
what had to be? I mean, it had to be. But again, we kind of saw him because of Kyle Young, right? Like Ohio State with Kyle Young, we were like, all right, they've overachieved all year. We've talked about this, kind of ad nauseum all season. Like Chris Holtmann got as much as he could. That roster is probably a top 5-ish Big Ten team ultimately, but he maximized them. And then you take Kyle Young out, kind of like, to me, I'm not going to say the same as being without Isaiah Livers for Michigan, but like similarly, they need all their pieces at Ohio State. And we saw that. The crazy part to me, and you probably watched more of the game than I did because I was at another game. The crazy thing to me was that they couldn't, that they allowed Max Asmus and Kevin O'Banner to get as many open looks from three as they did.
Well, I mean, that's the problem with Ohio State's defense is that they don't really play defense. And they can't really guard ball screens, and that's what Oral Roberts does. Yeah. And so that's why, I mean, we kind of knew it. Like that was the perfect matchup, which is why, ironically enough, like the reason that we were on the over was because we just assumed that neither team was going to be able to stop each other. Now, neither of us predicted that they would play that game at like a 65 possession pace, which is what they did. And that's why that total went to overtime. It didn't even come close to the number, which kind of sucked, but whatever. I think I had 4 losses yesterday on my bet. So the thing I loved about it, Jeff, is that Max Asmus and Kevin O'Banner were guys that like we've kind of known about all season, right? Like we saw Asmus go for 33 against, I think it was Oklahoma State in Stillwater, and we saw him put 20 on Arkansas, and we saw him put 28 on Wichita State in Wichita, and we saw the performances that he had. Like he had one stretch in February where over the course of 4 games he averaged 37 points. He went for 40 twice in the stretch of 4 games. He had a 7-game stretch where he hit at least 4 threes in every single game during that stretch. He ended up being the nation's leading scorer. Kevin O'Banner was not like as much of a mid-major darling, but he had 27 on Arkansas earlier this year. Then in the Summit League tournament, he had that tip in at the buzzer, and he had 2 monster dunks on North Dakota State in their win in the title game. And it was like, okay, these are the mid-major guys that we love, and these are the guys that we're going to be talking about. And I love when those guys that we kind of hype up and we say like these are the guys we've been watching all season long. And if you're not a college basketball fan, keep an eye on them. And then they turn into like the mid-major darlings of the tournament. It's just I love it when it plays out like that because these are guys that part of the reason why we love college basketball is these mid-major guys that don't get enough attention, that are just killing everybody at the lower levels. and it's great to see them shine when they get their opportunity. Those two combined for 59 points yesterday. My sources, Jeffrey, tell me that's pretty good.
That is pretty good. That is pretty good. And yeah, I mean, listen, now it'll be interesting to see. I mean, the big thing is always like, all right, now when they win, like how far can they go?
They can beat Florida. They can beat them.
Of course they can. Of course they can. It's not a horrible matchup at all for them. In fact, I don't know if the spread. I'm sure it's out already. I don't know what it is at this point. I can probably find it.
6.5 at Bet Rivers. I checked it last night.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Like that's high. That's kind of high in a way.
I would probably be on Florida at that number.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I mean,
the difference is that I think that Oral Roberts actually had the two best players on the floor last night, and I don't think that's going to be the case when they go up against Trey Mann of Florida. And I also don't know how Oral Roberts will deal with Colin Castleton. Actually, as weird as it sounds, I think Ohio State is a much better team than Florida, but I think Florida is much more built to be able to deal with somebody like Oral Roberts than Arkansas is. All right, so we also had North Texas knock off Purdue in overtime again, and we had Syracuse blow out San Diego State thanks to 30 points from Buddy Boeheim. You know what? So Oregon State blew out Tennessee. Like, what was do you have any overarching takeaways from day one? Anything else that you think we need to touch on from day one? Roy Williams, for the first time in his career, has lost in the first round of the NCAA tournament.
That was crazy.
Won game number 900. Like, we had a lot of stuff happen yesterday. It was wild.
That's a crazy stat for Roy Williams. That's insane to me. Like, at this point, for your first time in 30 tries, losing in the first round. I don't know. That's just amazing to me with all the coaches you see get upset early, right? I mean, like, all great coaches get knocked out early. Yeah, I mean, Purdue, I was expecting more. You know, to me, Jaden Ivey was great. Trevion Williams was good. They just didn't get enough from their other dudes. You know, what else?
Purdue just feels like they're a year away. And the other thing about it is, like, that was a tough matchup for them because North Texas kind of does the same things well that they do in terms of control tempo and run offense. The big difference was that North Texas had a guy that could take a game over by himself in Javion Hamlet, who, by the way, like, did you see his dad?
No, I didn't.
So Hamlet's dad came out in like a bright green T-shirt that had a picture of Javion airbrushed on it with like all his like career accomplishments written on the T-shirt around him, and he's walking around with like the iPad, filming on his iPad as he's watching the game, celebrating afterwards. It was just like one of like the top 5 all-time dad moments in NCAA tournament history. It was, oh man, Javion Hamlet.
Another big dad moment, Rob, was Jim Boeheim watching his son go for 30 to beat San Diego State, and they killed him like from start to finish. And I kind of called this one. Like, again, it's not that hard to call. I just didn't feel like the Mountain West was that good. Not the ACC was either, but we always see Syracuse kind of come on when it matters, right? I mean, we've seen this lately. Going to the Final Four a few years ago, and I don't know. I love Buddy Boeheim. I love it. I love the dynamic. I wrote about it when Buddy, I don't know if you remember when he was in AAU ball years ago, and sat down with Buddy for a while there and Jim. And it just when Buddy admits that my best friend is my father, who was 71 years old at the time, and Buddy's like 17, and they sit and they watch TV together and they hang out together. I don't know. I love Buddy Boeheim, so to see that was very cool.
Goodman had a long day yesterday, guys. Stop killing him. He's getting a little old. He's not ready for this time. He said, call you the mailman because you're mailing in this pod.
I'm not mailing in the pod. I'm tired, man. I'm running around. I'm getting, no sleep. But the good thing is actually not having to travel, man. Like that's the big thing. Not having to travel has probably saved me here. But listen, to me, I would say Syracuse for sure. And then obviously we have to talk about your Tennessee Vols, Robert.
That was bad. Like, it was. We knew the writing was on the wall for the season. That roster was not. It didn't fit. They don't have we've made this point over and over again. They don't have a great lead guard, and they don't have a great leader. There was no one on that team that could pull everybody together and say, fuck this, stop playing like a bunch of bitches. You know, like you got to go out there and be better. You have to go out there and play hard. You have to care. They didn't have anyone that could step up and yell at people if they weren't doing things the right way, that would hold the players accountable. Like coaches can only do so much. You got to have players that can hold players accountable. And the reason why I think that that's so obvious is like when things were going well for Tennessee, they were rolling, but they didn't have anyone that could help them.
It was a short window. It was a short window.
No, like, even if you go out and you watch the games where they played well, like the first 30 minutes against Alabama, they were awesome. Then Alabama responds, scores like 8 straight points, and you could just see the heads hang. And Tennessee, they kind of expected that something was going to happen. So they didn't have that leadership on the roster, and it was just very, very evident once you got past like the first 10 or 12 games of the season. All right, a couple other things that I just wanted to note before we move on. One is that where was I going with this?
I don't know.
The Florida Virginia Tech game was awesome, right?
Was that the best game of the day by far? No, Oral Roberts was the best game, wasn't it?
Oral Roberts was the best game of the day, but the Virginia Tech game, it gave us a true buzzer beater. We had controversy at the end. We had a couple of huge dunks. We had Colin Castleton do his little shimmy. I don't know if you guys saw that. So that was fun. That was good. Yeah. Rutgers, I could not possibly be happier for the kids in that Rutgers program. Like they really took it hard when the tournament got canceled last year, because the veterans on that team committed to Steve Peichel so that they could build Rutgers up and get a shot at the tournament. And they did it. And then they didn't get the shot at the tournament, which sucks.
I'm happy. I'm happy for Peichel, man. Peichel is like just the consummate professional. Never, I get enough coaches that will self-promote. Pikes never does that. He just coaches his team. He just grinds it out. And very cool that Rutgers won a game. I think what else? I mean, the 1 seed's pretty much rolled. I'm trying to think if there was anything else interesting.
I want to show this real quick. Joe just mentioned, did you ride the first half underwave? Yes, I did. I caught the end of it. I think I went. I got 3 in a row, and then
what was overall out of the 16? What was it?
It was the first 10 games yesterday. The first half all went under, and I think it was someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was the first 13 out of the first 14 in the tournament, because I think it was 3-1 in on the first.
You know what? I should have known this, because honestly, when I got to Banker's Life, it's the first thing I thought about. I got there and I'm watching Arkansas Colgate. There's nobody there. Like, it's so cavernous. It's so big. There probably were a decent, I don't know what the number was, because not every percentage is 25. A lot of them are like, Purdue was 9. I think some were like 15%. So honestly, it's one of those things where I think it's tough for these kids, playing in the big arenas. Maybe not Hinkle as much, but some of the other ones, Banker's Life, Lucas Oil.
That's actually a perfect segue into talking about tonight's games, because one of my favorite bets of the day is UCSB plus 7.5 against Creighton. It's 7.5 right now at Bet Rivers, and there's a lot of reasons why. One of them is that UCSB is a really, really good, really talented mid-major. One of them is because of the issues going on with Creighton right now. But I got 2 stats for you. One, the last 3 teams that were ranked in the top 100 on KenPom from the Big West all won their first-round tournament games as a 12 or a 13 seed. And 2, this game is being played in the Dome, right?
Yeah.
The Creighton Blue Jays are a 3-point shooting team. That's what they rely on.
Yeah. No, it absolutely will have an impact. Absolutely will have an impact. Yep. Listen, to me, again, you want to go through your favorite picks for today, or what do you want to do?
We can do that. If you guys are looking for a full breakdown of picks, I have one up on the Bet Rivers website, and what I can do is I can tweet out a link to when we went through every single game in both of these regions. on, I believe it was it Thursday at this point? I don't know. I can't keep my days straight. I think it was 2 days ago. But we already went through every single game and talked about what we liked in every game. So I think what we're just going to do here is we can pick our favorites, and then if anyone has any questions or any games they want us to go over, we can probably do that too. So I think that we should avoid talking about UCSB and talking about Ohio, because I think that would probably be both of our favorite picks today. Is that correct in saying that?
Virginia got in at about noon yesterday, I'm told. They got in about noon yesterday. They'll have a shoot around today. They've been in quarantine, haven't done anything all week. We know the drill. And we also know that neither one of us love Virginia to start this year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Like, neither one of us were completely bought into Virginia to start. So I will just say yes. Ohio would be I think I got it at 8 earlier this week.
I got the money line and the points. I took both of them. So what's your, just go, what you want me to go first? I'll go first. My favorite bet today is probably Texas laying 8.5 against Abilene Christian. Abilene Christian is a team that really tries to force turnovers. They really try to overplay in the half court. They do a lot of similar things to what Baylor does and what Texas Tech does. And Texas has seen that before. And they've seen it at a much higher level than what Abilene Christian is going to throw at them. I love Texas's guards. The big thing about Abilene Christian is, like, they lead the nation in turnovers forced defensively, but they didn't really play any high major opponents. Most of the stuff that they did was in the Southland. So I'm going to be on Texas here. I got Texas going to the Final Four. I just think that this is going to be another situation where we get a little bit overexcited because of the metrics for some of these mid-major programs. And it's the same situation as something like Colgate and something like Winthrop. There's just not enough points here based off of the talent disparity. So Texas is my favorite bet of the day.
I think mine, honestly, is USC, given 6.5 against Drake. Drake, they beat Wichita the other night. I watched that game in person. Drake doesn't do that much for me. And USC is just so big on that front line. I don't know how there's any chance Drake's gonna contain Mobley in this one. USC's got better and bigger guards. I like Drake's guards. I mean, they played well the other night, but again, I thought they were playing against a Wichita State team that just honestly was probably fortunate to get in the NCAA tournament. I think USC can overwhelm them with their size, their athleticism, and again, the Mobley brothers should have a big day. Yep.
I like USC in that spot too. I love Eastern Washington. Kansas says they're going to be without Jalen Wilson. David McCormick hasn't practiced in a week and a half. And I know that you keep having people tell you that they're not worried about David McCormick not being in shape.
Yeah.
I refuse to buy that. I'm going to have to, if he's in perfect shape, if he's in game shape right now, then that's something that I'm willing to take a risk on and bet against. Eastern Washington has played high major teams tough this year. They lost by 5 against Arizona and 5 against, I think it was Washington State, and 5 against St. Mary's, and then Oregon got them by 17. So they've hung tough with good teams. And I just, look, you take away a team's best perimeter player, you take away a team's best big guy, who I just don't believe David McCormick's going to be fully in shape. And I really like Eastern Washington. Right now, Bet Rivers has it at +10.
And listen, Eastern Washington's got a kid named Tanner Groves he was the player of the year in the Big Sky. Plays hard as shit. He's physical. Like, I've talked to people about them, and a lot of people thought Eastern Washington could win this game prior to all this. And again, you take away one of Bill Self's primary weapons offensively, really. Jalen Wilson, a guy that got out of the gates as well as just about anybody this season. And McCormick, we don't know what he's going to be able to do. I think Tanner Groves could have a favorable matchup in this one, and they've got other guys who can make plays and make shots. So I think Eastern Washington could pull the upset, but I'm with you. I'm definitely taking the points here. Definitely.
Yep. All right. So what's your second favorite bet?
After that, I would say I'd probably go Colorado over Georgetown. I know, like, the sentimental favorite, and I'll be at that game, is Patrick Ewing. But what Patrick Ewing doesn't have is McKinley Wright. And I just think McKinley Wright is one of the better point guards in the country that nobody knows about, period. He's a senior. He's done it for a long time now. And I just think those are the guys that generally you're going to win with in the NCAA tournament. Georgetown, yeah, they play great. I mean, they've done a great job, obviously, in the Big East tournament. But, the overall body of the work still says that Georgetown's a very mediocre team.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Pac-12 we thought was mediocre, but now the Pac-12 is the best conference in America, Rob.
Yeah. So
2-0. I think 2-0. Did they lose a game last night?
I don't think so. So my next pick is Iowa laying 14 against Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
We know that Grand Canyon has size, but I'm worried. I don't think that mid-guard can stop Luka Garza one-on-one. And what you have to be able to do is stop Luka.
No kidding. Who can stop Garza one-on-one? Like
Kofi Coburn and Hunter Dickinson.
Okay. There's like one human being, 1.5 human beings.
Which is why Iowa is so good this year. And I just the way that you have to be able to beat Iowa is to stop Luka Garza one-on-one, or just be an elite team when it comes to like digging and trapping and being able to rotate. Now, there's two problems. One is I don't think Grand Canyon is that, and two, they have a 6'10" guy that they play at the 4 that's going to have to chase around one of Iowa's perimeter players. So not only are you going to have the issue of trying to guard Luka Garza one-on-one, but like I can't remember the name of the other big kid. It's escaped me at the moment, but he's going to have to chase around like Keegan Murray or Joe Wieskamp.
Alessandro Lever.
Yeah, I just think, look, I think Bryce Drew has done a good job with that Grand Canyon team, and they probably have more talent than people realize. But I just kind of feel like this is a game where Iowa gets it going. They create those mismatches. They get those open threes. They make those open threes, and they end up winning by like 20.
You don't give the Scott Drew mojo, like the coaching tree, to some degree. They're 3-0 right now. Just in case you didn't know, they're 3-0. Paul Mills won. Oral Roberts, Grant McCaslin.
How is Bryce Drew a part of Scott Drew's coaching tree?
Well, because they live together. So they're I'm just calling them a tree. They're part of the tree. That's all.
They're not part of the tree.
He's part of the tree.
Scott Drew.
They're part of the tree.
They're both part of Homer Drew's coaching tree.
No. Like Scott Drew.
No, I don't.
Yes.
No, I'm giving her. It's Fran, and I know. Look, I know how much it's weird sitting here saying, yeah, I trust Fran McCaffrey in this spot. But I kind of trust Fran McCaffrey in this spot. All right, what else you
got? What do you like? I mean, there's a couple that are intriguing that I don't have a great feel on. That Maryland-UConn game still baffles me. Like, I just don't know what to do with it. I want to go UConn, but I'm just scared to go against Maryland. This Morcell book night matchup is probably the best matchup of the day, and probably the one that most of the NBA guys will be at. I think book night's a guy that, like, the NBA guys are so intrigued by, but they don't know where can he move all the way up in this draft to like going, 6th in this draft? Can he move that high?
If he has a good tournament, he can.
Right.
He made some really impressive passes in the Big East tournament. And but the big thing with him is, like, we know what he is as an athlete. We know what he is as a slasher.
Right.
He's been better as a passer, like hitting the roll mans and pick and rolls, which makes a difference because I think that his best future is as a combo. Like ideally in something kind of like how I'm going to just say Devin Booker, but like not. I don't think
Donovan Mitchell.
So yeah, like a Donovan Mitchell kind of role. That's actually much better. But I mean, he's got to be able to shoot it, and he's got to be able to handle the ball. And I don't think that he does either of those at an elite level yet, and he's not going to prove that today. But I will tell you this: like, you see the shirt that I got on. I do. This is such an uncomfortable matchup for me. I did not like this matchup. The one thing that makes me feel good about it is that the Big Ten has kind of had some struggles, and I think that this is something where I don't know. I think other than the Morcell book night matchup, I think UConn is kind of better across the board, but we'll see. Doesn't feel great. Definitely doesn't feel great. The other one that I'm kind of struggling with in this game is Oregon against VCU. I I think you got to go with VCU in that spot. That just seems like too many points, but it's not comfortable at all.
It is. It's a lot of points, but anytime you bet against Dana Altman, it scares you, right? Like you don't want to bet against Dana Altman. But yes, I think it is a lot of points, and I think ultimately, listen, how many games were super close yesterday that went within? I don't have it in front of me. Do you know the answer to that? Like, how many were like 3 or less points game? Not many, right? Ohio State, that one. What other game went within 3 points yesterday, Rob?
Well, I mean, we had an overtime. We had 2 other overtime games, but like that doesn't really count.
The other overtime game wasn't within 3.
Yeah,
so I believe. Was there one game that was within 3 points? One game?
Yeah, that's it.
So aren't we looking at a day where you think we're going to have a bunch of those? Usually we get that first day. A lot of times we do. We get that first day that's kind of been okay. And the second day is a bunch of buzzers.
I thought yesterday, yesterday was more than just like okay basketball. Like
yeah, but it wasn't.
Florida won by 5. But that was a buzzer beater in a game that went to overtime. North Texas and Purdue went to overtime.
No, so I get it. There were some good games, but there were some duds too, and a lot of them weren't like even with Villanova. It was never like in doubt, right? It was never the only thing in doubt was whether they were going to cover. That was it for the whole game. So I'm wondering if today is going to be that day, Rob, where we get, and I think it is, because looking through the schedule, you see a lot more games to me that aren't going to be, Alabama, Iona could absolutely be a route. What other game do you look at down Gonzaga? Those are the 2. But what other game do you look at and you're like, okay, yeah, that's going to be a route. I don't even need to watch that one. Even Michigan, they'll probably beat the hell out of Texas Southern. But you and I both know Texas Southern has high major dudes.
Yep.
They have high major talent, right? They could play with Michigan for a while and it wouldn't shock you.
Yeah. Texas Southern is an interesting one. I don't think Alabama's gonna be tested all that much by Iona. I like Alabama to kind of win on a route there. But beyond that, there's a lot of games that could get really weird.
That's what I'm saying.
Iowa, Grand Canyon. Like the ones in the 2 seeds, I think will have a fairly easy time of it. Actually, now that you mention it, the Gonzaga first half line against Norfolk State. Norfolk State's going to play a zone and try to press Gonzaga. Like that shit is not going to go well.
That's not good.
You can't zone Gonzaga, and you don't want to press Gonzaga. So I think we touched on basically everything.
We got to, before we go, just because I tweeted
Marquette.
it. Yeah, we got to go through a little Marquette stuff, and I got to say hello to the Indiana fans, all the Indiana fans out there that are flooding my DMs. Thank you for your kind words. I really appreciate it. I don't know why they're so upset. All I did was say, there's no way in hell Brad Stevens is coming to Bloomington. And they kept coming. And then some dude tweeted yesterday, I don't know who that was. Some dude tweeted that it was done with Brad Stevens. So then I had to play the game again yesterday and try to get to Brad and, pregame availability for the Celtics. I got on there because I cover the Celtics enough and asked him the first question. And he just reiterated, I guess, a little bit stronger. I mean, I just asked him flat out. I'm like, what are the chances, you're considering Indiana? And he said, I'm not. Let's move on. He gave a great quote. I don't know if you saw his quote.
Yeah. The problem was, and what he really just needed to do was say it right up front. I listened to the whole thing that he said, and it was a 2-minute and 32-second answer to your question. And he talked about how much he loves the state of Indiana, and he talked about how special it would be to go back, and he talked about how great this and that is. And instead of just saying, "Look, I'm not taking Indiana, but this is how I feel about the place," he said, "This is how I feel about the place." And at the end, he was like, "I'm staying at I'm not leaving." So what happens is you have all of these people that are going to listen to that whole quote and not pay attention to how much he talks about how much he loves Indiana, instead and read into that instead of saying, okay, he's not coming. This is what he said. So that's just, I mean, if you really want to nip this in the bud, just say it. You don't have to.
Yeah, he was trying to be respectful. He was trying to be respectful of Indiana because, as we knew.
No, I get it. And you can be very respectful, but you can also just say, look, I'm not I'm not going right now.
It was wishy-washy, his first one earlier in the week, and that's why I wanted to get him again of just, hey, Brad, are you going or aren't you? Are you considering it or aren't you? Are you going to be the Celtics coach? Yeah. And he said, like, the best quote to basically say I'm not leaving was, he said, like, I'm not a kid anymore. I'm a 44-year-old masshole. I eat Dunkin' Donuts. I swerve around on the road, and I root for the Patriots. And so it's over. Indiana fans, you're not getting Brad Stevens, the 10-year deal worth $65 million. It didn't matter what the number was either, Rob. Didn't matter. The money was irrelevant to Brad Stevens. Did he consider it? I don't know. I mean, again, only he and his wife Tracy probably know the answer to that. I think he listened because, again, it's Indiana and that's Brad Stevens. I think he listened, and ultimately he's not going to Indiana. And now the question is, who is going to Indiana? That's the big question now, Rob.
Well, here's the thing about it that people need to understand is that the life of an NBA coach is so much less stressful than the life of a college basketball coach. Like when you're in college, you have to go out and you have to recruit and you have to deal with boosters and you have to deal with administration, and you are the one whose job's on the line if your players do something bad off the court. In the NBA, it's the players whose job's on the line if they do something bad off the court. There's so much more involved with it, and it's so much more 24/7. In the NBA, you go out, you coach, and you come home, and that's it. And you go to bed.
Need to know. Here's the best quote Brad ever gave me. He said, when I was at Butler, I used to drive home and my phone wouldn't stop ringing. I'd either be calling people or they'd call me. Now I drive home from practice, nobody calls me. I'm like looking for people to talk to. That's the biggest difference from, obviously there's more travel in the NBA overall, but they get the off season. He doesn't have to worry about being on the phone when he's coaching. He's just coaching. So he's not coming back to college, period. That's over, Indiana fans. So they still, as of yesterday, obviously they were still trying to work through this Brad Stevens thing, Dolson was, and see what they could get, if they could get any traction. Now they got to start moving in a different direction, obviously. And is that direction Chris Beard? Is it John Beilein? Is it one of their own? Keith Smart, Mike Woodson, somebody like that? Do they look Porter Moser if he beats Illinois? Do they look that route? Who do you go after? Who do you go after for you?
Oh man, it's tough. If it's me, what I would do is I would go out and try to get John Beilein, and I would find a way to get some kind of Indiana alum associated with that. Maybe like a Dane Fife, maybe a Keith, like somebody to put on the staff.
Albert Cheney, you could load up. Michael Lewis from UCLA. You could get all of them if you wanted.
Yeah, get someone, even if you got to term them as like the associate head coach or the coach in waiting or something like that. Get somebody that has shown the ability to develop a program and build a program, and get somebody on the staff that will be an Indiana guy to kind of alleviate some of the immediacy that the Indiana fans are feeling. Like, I feel like if you have someone there that they know and love, that has been with the program and been around the program, that it makes it that much easier to tolerate the fact that you're looking at like a 3 or 4 year rebuilding job. Like, this isn't going to be a snap of the fingers kind of thing. Right. At Indiana, I think that you need someone that can come in and take a couple of years and really build this thing from the ground up. But I don't know if that's going to be what ends up happening. I don't even know if he can hire John Beilein at this point after what happened in the way that his tenure with Cleveland ended.
That's the big question I have is people kind of forget about the way it ended with Beilein, and obviously in the current climate we're in, does that follow John Beilein, or is he able to get another big time job like Marquette without worrying about the repercussions and the backlash, and can he recruit at the same level? Now, the one thing with John Beilein, it's not like they really succeeded at Michigan with like top 20 players. In fact, the highest rated guy he ever got was Mitch McGary. And how did that turn out? So,
I mean, what he did was he was great at identifying the players that fit specifically into what he wanted to do, and also going and finding guys that were under recruited, mostly because of age. Right, or because they needed like one certain thing developed, a certain level of development. Like Karis LeVert was too skinny. Let's bring him in. Let's redshirt him. Let's put some weight on him and see what happens. Go out and get Franz Wagner or Mo Wagner. Yeah, you know what? They're young for their age. Let's bring him in, and let's see what happens. Like that's what Duncan Robinson. Yeah, he's a great shooter. Let's bring him in and let's see what happens. Like that's what he was great at doing. And I think that's that's what you need right now at Indiana, is to have a guy that can come in, not have to worry about recruiting just 5 stars and get it done. I don't know if that's going to be the option that they go to.
I would go Beard. I would empty the vault for Chris Beard. I would empty the vault. Again, I don't know if he leaves Lubbock. He's already making 4 point something. Now, Indiana was willing to pay Brad, obviously, like 6.5, something in that vicinity. Could you get Beard for 5? A number that starts with 5? I don't know.
Let me ask you this: if you're Chris Beard, right, and you're from Texas, you're living in West Texas, your family's in West Texas.
Yeah.
Do you want to leave a place where they love you, where getting to the tournament is celebrated, where getting a 6 seed and winning a game is considered a great season, to go to a place where you're living in the fishbowl? I mean, he's proven that he can go to a national title game. Like, if DeAndre Hunter doesn't hit that 3 at the end of regulation in the national title game, like, he wins a national title at Texas Tech. Like, he doesn't have to leave Lubbock to go be able to win a national title.
Harder. It's just everything's harder because it's Lubbock. It's harder to recruit guys than it is at Indiana. It's harder to recruit guys than it is at, if another big time job, if Arizona opened up, right? Like, it's just harder. He can do it, and he's proven he can do it, but to do it over and over and over again. Is
it weird for me to say that I would rather have Arizona than have Indiana at this point, just because I think that you can still kind of get the same caliber of talent? There's still the same level of expectation. There's still the same kind of fan passion, but you don't have, I feel like the pressure to win at Indiana is so much greater that it's significantly less stressful on you dealing with what you got to deal with at Arizona than what you got to deal with at Indiana. Does that make sense?
Yeah, there's only one difference, that Arizona's not open right now.
Yeah,
Indiana is. That's the big difference. So now,
I know what you're saying. I was just trying to make a point overall.
I think they're similar. I've always said Arizona and Indiana are like similar levels, similar type jobs, not top 10 jobs anymore, but kind of right around there, somewhere in that 10 to 15 range probably. All right, let's talk about Marquette before we get moving.
Yeah, and Minnesota. If you got anything on Minnesota, there were people in the chat asking about Minnesota.
Okay. We'll start with Marquette.
I mean, look, that's the best funded school in the Big East. It's one of the best funded schools in terms of resources in the high major ranks. And Wojo went to 2 NCAA tournaments in 7 years. That should never be considered acceptable.
He didn't win a tournament game in 7 years at Marquette. Like, you can't do that. You can't do that. I'll give you some scoop here.
All right, hit me.
No, this is this is crazy. I'm told that there was a scenario on the table in which Wojo could have come back if he had changed his staff, and he didn't. He didn't change his staff. He didn't want to change his staff. He didn't want to bring in another veteran coach who could help him. So he basically set him out. How about that?
Loyal to his guys. I actually respect that a little bit.
You do, but you're like, you scratch your head also, like, really? That's going to be the holdup. So, all right, where does Marquette go? As you said, unbelievable tradition, resources, all of it. A job that I think Porter Moser covets and has coveted, from what I'm told, according to people close to him. Shaka Smart, a guy who's from Wisconsin. Could he go back there after the way he might feel he's been treated and fairly over the last couple of years? I mean, again, very close to being fired by Chris Delcani, their AD, if not for a huge buyout. Does Shaka say, hey, I'm taking my ball and I'm going back closer to home? He's losing a lot after this year, Rob, a lot. So now would be the time to do it if you do it. Beeline, got to be in the mix there at Marquette if you can hire him. Again, the big question is, as an administration, are you comfortable bringing in John Beeline? And then a name to watch is Pat Kelsey, I think. I think he's a little outside the box, but he coached at Xavier. He's got Midwest ties, too. He's not just a Winthrop guy and a Southern guy. He's got a lot of more Midwest ties. So, Shaka, Beeline, Porter Moser, Pat Kelsey, those are a few names that I think will be in the mix for Marquette early.
Didn't Shaka when they hired Wojo when Buzz left, like wasn't Shaka like heavy in the mix there?
Yes, he interviewed. He talked to the AD.
If I'm not mistaken, I feel like I remember somebody reporting that that Shaka was going to take the Marquette job. Like there was a while there was like expectation that he was gone and he was taking the Marquette job.
Was that like Dockich and Greenberg when they reported that Steve Alford took the Indiana job?
No, I don't want to say who it is. I'll tell you off the air. I don't want to put anybody on blast. I like the person. All right,
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, look, that's a great job if you can get it. A great job if you can get it.
If you're Shaka, do you go? If you're Shaka, do you leave Texas now and go to Marquette? You might.
I don't know.
You might. It's a basketball job.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I think it would be maybe a savvy decision because like you're going to have to start over next year. Like you're probably losing Greg Brown. You're probably losing Kai Jones. Matt Coleman's gone because he's a senior. Jericho Sims is gone because he's a senior, and you're going to have to basically start over from scratch. And how much leeway are you going to get from that administration? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. You're right.
That's tough. All right. Anything on Minnesota? I feel like there's just such a long line of people that make sense.
Long line right now. They're trying to figure it out between the Craig Smiths or the Beelines, the Nico Medveds. I don't think it's going to be Muss. I think Dutcher's again got a low number in his buyout to go to Minnesota if he really wants to do it. So I think they're trying to figure this whole thing out right now. Can they get Porter Moser? Are they going minority candidate after the recent article in the Minneapolis Star-Tribune that pointed out the lack of diversity among the coaches in the department? So we'll kind of see. I think that's still early stages. You got to remember, a lot of these are going to go slower. They're going to move slower because again, it's not like everybody's in Indy right now and the ADs can interview with everybody in person. They got to do a round of Zoom calls and then probably get it down to 2 or 3 and then go out and meet those 2 or 3 in person.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Big thing for Minnesota, you got to find somebody that is going to be able to keep that, like, that second tier of talent. Like, I'm not saying that you have to keep the Jalen Suggs and the Chet Holmgrens and the Trey Jones and those guys in Minneapolis because you're probably not going to, but you have to find somebody that can keep that next tier of talent so that you can get all of the Daniel Oturos, right? Make sure that every single Daniel Oturo that comes out of Minneapolis goes to the University of Minnesota. Get McKinley right there. Make sure you get every McKinley right that comes out of the state of Minnesota goes to the University of Minnesota. That's what you got to do. So, I think that's what we got.
All right. Big day. It starts with me at is the first game the Georgetown game? That's the game I'm going to be at. Yeah, 12:15. I got to get moving here. I got to get ready.
You got to go. You got to take a shower. You got to clean yourself up. You got to work off that hangover. Maybe get a cup of Dunkin'. Like you're struggling right now.
I got to find Dunkin'. out here. That's
text Chris Mack. I guarantee Chris Mack knows where the first.
He probably does.
In every city in America.
A little early. Get some Dunkin'.